Hi everyone and welcome back. We are officially starting season 2 of our master study series, and for our next master we are leaving the parlour of Henriette Ronanip and heading into the bush. We're looking at Harold Septimus Power. He's often called an Australian master, but he was actually an accidental New Zealander. His father Peter was a painter and a teacher who had to flee Victoria after the Eureka Stockade Uprising in 1854. Harold was born in Dunedin in 1877 while the family was essentially in exile, and they didn't head back to Australia until he was 6. One thing I found fascinating while digging through the archives is that Harold wasn't exactly allowed to be an artist at first. His father really discouraged it, so at 14 he just ran away and he spent some time in the bush. And to make ends meet, he was painting animal heads on the sides of butcher vans and delivery wagons. Eventually his father forced him into 4 years of veterinary training, and now at the time he probably hated it, but there's a great story that his instructor eventually told him, "You'll never make a vet, you better get." But for us as painters, those 4 years are a goldmine. It gave him clinical and skeletal understanding of animals that most artists just don't have. And by the time those 4 years ended, he was already an artist really, and a close friend of the celebrated painter Walter Withers. And it was only after Withers spoke to his father that Harold was finally allowed to spend his time in the country painting animals and pastoral scenes and specialising in horses. It's amazing to think that without Withers' intervention, we might never have seen these masterpieces. After the breakthrough with Walter Withers, things moved quickly. He moved to Adelaide around 1900 and actually started out as a political cartoonist, which probably helped sharpen his sense of character in a subject and looking beyond the surface. But his real passion was still the landscape. And in 1903 he had his first major success with a massive painting called After the Day's Toil, which was bought by the Art Gallery of South Australia, and that sale was his ticket out. It gave him the funds to do what every aspiring Australian artist dreamed of back then. He headed to Paris. He spent 2 years at the Académie Julian, which was a legendary and very rigorous art school. And this is where that self-taught energy probably clashed or met with the formal French discipline. And you can see his work start to shift here as well, becoming more confident, more structural, and much more European in its sophistication. We can see the Impressionist influence in his smaller dabs of paint and explosions of colour, which is quite different from his later pieces with larger, more gestured strokes. And after Paris, he settled in London, and this is where he really arrived. He became a regular at the Royal Academy of Arts, and to give you an idea of how highly he was regarded back then, for 6 years in a row, he had 3 large pictures hung on the line at the Academy. And in the art world of the early 1900s, being hung on the line meant your work was at eye level, and that's prime real estate of the gallery. He was recognised as one of the leading animal painters in England. He was becoming famous for these equine splendour scenes, portraits and hunting dogs, building a reputation for what critics called satisfactory realism. He knew how to make a painting feel alive without it being stiff, a photographic copy, but his opinion on this type of work really belied his success because he would prefer to paint an old draft horse than the perfect horse portraits he was asked for. When the First World War broke out, Power was 37 years old, an established master at this stage, and he was appointed an official war artist, and this is where he really came into his own style. As an artist, you wouldn't think that he would be at the front lines, but he was out there at Ypres sketching batteries in action and under actual shell fire. I found a wild story in a 1921 Observer article about him getting lost in heavy rain near Cambrai. He spent the night in a ruined cottage, and at dawn he saw soldiers in the mist, and he thought that they were Germans. When he finally approached them, they thought he was a German spy. Since he couldn't speak French, he was nearly executed on the spot until a British cavalry officer happened to ride by and save him. He was eventually gassed at Villers Bretonneux. I'm butchering the French pronunciations, but that ended his time at the front. But that urgency never really left his brush, I think. He used the largest brushes possible to keep the energy high, and he didn't want pretty horses. He wanted the soul of the draft teams in the mud, and he captured the last greatest horse battles in history, and you can see in the brushwork that he's recording a world with incredible urgency. After the war, Power eventually found himself tired of the grey skies of Europe. He had a passionate patriotism for Australia and longed for what he called the big bold character of the bush. He returned home to capture that high contrast, sun-drenched light we associate with the Australian landscape. But he wasn't just a quiet painter in his later years. He was a so-called breaker of bad images and a severe critic of how art was shown. He famously complained that the Adelaide Gallery was jumbled up like jam tins, and that the curation was like a jazz band, total noise. He had no time for buncombe, and I've never heard that word before, so that was quite a funny read. He believed that if a painting wasn't technically sound, it didn't belong on the wall. But even as he got older, he remained a technician above all, and there is a lovely account that I found who remembered him as a kindly, lovable man who always had an unlit cigarette jiggling on his lip while he talked. He taught the technical knowledge of paint until the very end in 1951, and now that we know the man, we are going to spend the next few weeks in the studio trying to deconstruct and understand how he painted.